Yeah, this is my 1994 Acura Integra. Just coasting when I'm off the gas. I don't know if you can hear it. Let me brake a little bit. You could hear that. And it's the gear is engaged. So I'm coasting this way with the gear engaged with the transmission. Okay, this time the gear is not engaged, but I'm coasting and I braked a little bit. I don't know if you can hear it. I think you can hear that knocking sound. Coming from the drivetrain, I think it's the axle. And we also check the bearing out over here. 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. On this Acura Integra, on the driver's side, we have the outer axle, which is over here, and then beyond here is the inner axle. And so we have this joint here, and to test this, you know, there's going to be a little play this way if I move that, but then if I hang on to this and kind of press it, and there's going to be a little bit of play here also, you know, going this way. But if I hold this and then I move the axle here, there shouldn't be any play, but you can hear a little bit of noise there when I do that. Okay, so we're on the passenger side axle, and if I just try to move this, I don't even have to hold this down. I can tell it's solid. It's not, there's no play at all. So that kind of tells me the driver's side outside axle, the inner joint is loose. I'll take the front wheel off. We're going to remove the outside axle. I got to take this cap off in order to take this nut off. I have to put the tire back on, and but I have to take this cap off. So push the cap out. I wouldn't use a screwdriver, it might damage. It's a plastic thing. I wouldn't do it from the outside. I would knock it out from the inside. Put it back on. You can see I have to bend this part of the nut out first so I can turn it. Tap the end of the screwdriver with a hammer and pushed it out. This nut takes a 32mm socket. Got that on. I'm going to get a cheater bar. No problem. Take this power steering tie rod out. Remove the cotter pin. hopefully we can reuse this. Okay. Shock it. Okay, so it doesn't come out. I'm gonna use this puller. So that worked really beautifully. Came off really easily. Just had to make sure the center nut is right underneath that, and I just used this ratchet and didn't have to put too much pressure. Came off very easily. The ball joint. Again, there's a cotter pin down here. Finally got the cotter pin out. And then we got a 17mm bolt. I need to get this ball joint unstuck from the lower control arm. You could use a puller like this, but I don't have the right size and it doesn't fit underneath here. What I'm doing here is I lifted the whole assembly up and then stuck a wrench handle in between the bottom part of the lower control arm and the knuckle. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to lower the jack, and it's going to be putting pressure on here to have it release. So while we're lowering the jack on the lower control arm, you know, for safety, I always have the car supported by another jack. That's very important. Okay, just came apart. Now the gap forming. Next I'm going to take this bolt off, and this bolt comes through at the lower wishbone, and I've got this is 17mm nut. You can see there's the bolt goes all the way through, so I have to hold it with another wrench on this side. I'll let it sit with a little bit of penetrant in there. Okay. Okay, and then pretty easily. Just got the nut off and get a punch it through. Okay. Okay, so we pulled the bolt from out of here. This is the outer axle right here, and this is like a brace with the bearing inside, and here's the inner axle on this side. So we're not replacing this, but we are replacing the outer axle. And there's a there's a wire clip in here that's holding this outer axle on here. Okay. I put penetrant lube through the top, so sometimes these will get stuck because they're corroded. But then I got this chisel, and you know it's pretty blunt, so I put it right here, and then you got to get some a short-handled sledgehammer. You know, basically get the chisel and hit the other side of the chisel with the sledgehammer, and it popped out. Just you know, maybe about 5 taps, and it came out. Nice. There we go. And move it over to the side. Okay, there we go. This is the replacement axle that I got. And here's the old one. And you kind of compare and make sure it looks the same on both ends. Got the splines. And the length of the axle goes in and out. You can match the size. You can see how it shifts in and out. So it's about the right size. And this is the inner part. Okay, so I'm underneath the car now, and these splines I'm going to grease up a bit before I put the new axle in. And you notice this is the lock ring right here. I'm going to loosen that up, so because that's going to lock into the inner CVD rod. Okay, so I put lube all the way around the splines, and now ready to push the inner joint back in. It took some maneuvering, but the way I got it in was grab the bottom here, and then grab the shaft with the other hand, line it up, and then put a good force in like that, and I got it seated. Alright, I'm gonna grease the splines here again. Before putting the lower ball joint into the lower control arm, I'm replacing the boot with the one I got from AutoZone, and a packet of 4 was like $9, and I'm going to pack this with grease. To get this lower control arm to come down so I can put the bolt back in here, I'm going to have to pull this control arm down. And the way I'm going to do that is get a crowbar and then just lower, bring it down like that, step on it while I lift the knuckle up. I'm going to have to use two hands to do this. So, putting the castle nut back on, torque it to 40 pounds. Okay, so we torqued it to 40 pounds, and then I had to spin it just a little bit more tighter so I can get the cotter pin through the hole. I'm working on getting this yoke, putting the bolt through here to the lower control arm. This took some doing, but I was able to get this bolt started in here and threaded into the lower control arm. And the way I did this was it took some weight, my whole part of my body weight. I've got a crowbar here, right here, and I put it underneath the body of the car here and then press down the lower control arm. I want to show you to get that bolt to come through this part of the wishbone. I had to twist this wishbone a little bit, and well, there's two forces that I needed to happen here. One was I needed to get this part of the wishbone, this side of the wishbone, up, so that's why I have this jack pushing it up. But then also I needed to get the wishbone going back this way. So in order to do that, I put a crowbar here, and then I put pressure on the other side of the wishbone, and then forcing the wishbone here this way by kind of going like this, putting pressure on it. So you need two forces from two different directions. So I finally got the bolt coming through here. So we got to put this nut on. Okay, and we've got to hold the other side of the nut so the other side of the nut doesn't spin. Torque it to 47 pounds. See this outer tie rod, it spins. Try to get it close to it lined as we had it at the very beginning, but I'm going to end up doing a toe adjustment anyways, but we want to get it close. So from the last thread here to the end of the tie rod, I want to make sure, you know, I do enough twists and adjust this in order to be 8 inches 9/16. And this one is at 8 inches 9/16, so we're in good shape. I discovered the boot is broken, so I put some more grease in here. And I got the new boot, And so I'm going to install the new boot. The ball joint here is spinning. You know, while I'm putting the nut on, I want to stop it from spinning. So what I do is get a C-clamp and I clamp down just the edges. Press the ball joint in and then put the nut on. Okay, and then we put the castle nut on. I put the castle nut on, and I'm going to fold over the cotter pin. I torqued it to 37, but to get to the cotter pin hole to line up, I tightened it a little bit more, and I got the cotter pin through. Then we just bend it over. Before we put the axle nut on here, we want to tighten the bolts here and then put the car to the ground because we don't want this wheel spinning while we're tightening the axle nut. Put it on slightly tight like that, and you alternate from one side to the other. Tighten a little bit here, tighten a little bit here, and go back. I'm going to lower the car now. Okay. And then finish off tightening. Then we're going to torque this to 134 pounds. You see this tab, hammer that tab down with a punch. Okay, we took the wheel back off so we have access to this. Punch to lock the nut onto the axle. So now we're going to tighten the lug bolts on. Hand tight. The car down, and then we do a final tightening here now.